I'm Luis, and welcome to the Itty Bitty Horror Podcast. This podcast is dedicated to smaller horror stories from folks from around the world. In this podcast, we aim to share stories from everyday people that have experienced something either paranormal, spooky, or straight up terrifying. Stories that don't make the news.
I think she's an older woman. She lived alone. Maybe she was kind of lonely. I felt like she died in the shower. Like,
Yeah.
if she did pass, like, R.I.P., rest in peace, seriously, like, I feel like she must have passed in that shower, because an old woman, like, walking down that long hallway, that slanted hallway to the shower, that's really dangerous.
That's my friend Annie. She's lived in the Bay Area for a little over 10 years now, and while she's been here for a bit, she only recently decided to take the plunge and find her own spot. The Bay Area is known for high rent. The average rent in San Francisco for a one-bedroom apartment is around $3,000. That's if you're not including amenities like an elevator or private parking. And it's not much better in the East Bay, where the average rent in Berkeley and Oakland is around $2,000 or more for a one-bedroom apartment. And these aren't luxury condos with up-to-date appliances and furnishings. These are old buildings with mold, appliances from yesteryear, and in some cases, some haunted housemates. So today I'm going to talk with our guest about what we're willing to put up with to save a dime. We'll discuss the warning signs of a potentially shady property and why, at the end of the day, we still decided to live there. My first guest today is my dear friend Annie. Annie and I first met about 5 years ago at a local nonprofit where we both managed a team of progressive folks that were passionate about fundraising for national nonprofits. In the world of nonprofits, the salaries aren't high and the work is never ending. Cut to a few years later, and COVID has caused us to rethink the way we want to live and who we want to live with. In Annie's case, it was an easy decision. Annie, thank you so much for joining me on the first episode. How are you feeling?
I'm good. I'm a little bit nervous.
Yeah.
Never been on a podcast before, but I'm very, very happy to be here.
I mean, I've never done a podcast before, so obviously it's a little weird. But I think doing this like with a friend that I trust makes it easier. So forgive us, listeners, if this sounds a little off, but we'll make sure to entertain you.
Yeah. I'll try to be entertaining. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll try my best, but yeah, I am concussed. So just FYI, minor concussion.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh at you being concussed, but do you want to tell us like what happened?
So I was in a exercise class and I bonked my head pretty badly.
Yeah.
And so, first day of the concussion, immediately after the exercise class, went to get coffee with you.
Yeah.
And I think like the first word out of my mouth was like, I think I'm concussed.
But then you went to the doctor, I'm assuming, right?
I did, yeah. I went to telehealth, and I've had concussions before. I think this one's pretty minor, and I'm coming out of it. But was dying to come here and overcome my ailment.
Yeah, to be here and to give the audience context for those that care. You used to be a diver.
Yes, I did.
Which is why you've had various concussions. I don't want people to think that you just randomly bump it into things and like falling down or anything like that.
True. Yeah, I did have a good reason for most of my concussions.
Exactly, as many people don't. But thank you again for obviously joining me on the podcast. Today's topic, obviously, I wanted to talk about the Bay Area rental crisis, almost you could say, but obviously, the Bay Area is so expensive just to live here in general, and we have to do with what we have. And the overall topic is just like going into properties that are a little, sketchy. But I guess my overall first question is, do you believe in the paranormal?
Well, you know this about me, but I consider myself like agnostic when it comes to almost, everything in the unknown realm.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair.
So that's, the spiritual, supernatural, paranormal. I think that there's a lot of interesting takes on what could be happening, but I don't think that we've found one answer. So I will say that I believe that there could be ghosts.
Yeah.
I don't think necessarily there is one specific look or like feel to what a ghost is. I think a ghost could like be a lot of different things. I don't think it always has to be a Victorian, child.
That's all we hear.
Like,
we only hear Victorian children,
Right.
or a woman in a white dress walking down the road. Though, if you have a story with a woman in a white dress
Please.
walking down the road, please please contact us. But yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's I think we all have the stereotypical image of what a ghost is, and then have like the clanking chains and like like that type of stuff. And I don't, obviously it could just be like this tweet I saw one time where it's like, why for once can we not see a ghost from like the early 2000s with a Britney Spears t-shirt saying it's Britney bitch or something. I was like, oh my god, I have a Britney fan as a ghost, and I love Britney, so I'm not trying to be shady or anything.
Yeah, or like, I think I like some movies, like I like the paranormal, what are they called, the house with the stuff flies off the walls, and like the movies, the horror movies, Paranormal Activity.
Oh, Paranormal Activity, got it. I was like, wait, what are you talking about? Yeah, I love those films. Yeah,
I like those because I'm like, what, if I was a ghost, and I know like in the end, it appears that they're after something bigger, but if I was a ghost, I wouldn't be like out for anything negative necessarily, but I would be messing with people because I'd be bored.
Oh yeah, no, that's we've talked about this in the past, but it's like if one of us goes first, we promise each other we would haunt each other.
Promise.
But it would be in a friendly way, not in a like oop, let me move your coffee mug to the other side and see if she notices.
Yes, exactly. Like I always say that if I go first, like,
knock on wood, yeah.
I am going to, I'm just going to be like putting water bottles like right next to you all the time to get you to drink water.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that would be a very kind thing to do. So if you will haunt your friends, make sure you make a pact in terms of what you want to do to each other.
Exactly.
But Annie, considering today's topic, obviously, I mentioned this earlier, the Bay Area is so expensive. A one-bedroom apartment right here in Oakland is like runs to up to $2,000, up to $2,500 for a one-bedroom or a studio even. I want to talk a little bit about your weird experiences from the past. So I guess to kind of take a step back, what was your living situation like before COVID?
Well, like most people in the Bay Area, finding affordable rent has been a journey, and sometimes you have to make some sacrifices along the way. So I was living for years in the Bay with like between 5 to 10 other people.
5 to 10 roommates.
Yes. Roommates.
I'm assuming it was a big house.
Big house.
Okay.
Big house, small rooms. So I know, when I first like graduated college, I moved from my college apartment where I was kind of like living in this shared living room situation with my friend.
Wait, you stayed in a living room?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I didn't know that part. Okay.
Oh, you didn't know that?
No, I didn't know you lived in a living room.
What?
No.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I lived in, my friend and I, we lived in it was a living room. It was sectioned off with like some kind of makeshift like door thing.
Yeah. Okay.
It wasn't like, I'd say it wasn't legally a room.
Nothing in the Bay Area ever is.
Yeah, and we were sharing it.
Yeah.
And we were still paying, I think we were paying like $400 a month.
Jeez.
To live with 2 other girls. And so I moved, after college, starting, my working professional life. I moved into this apartment with about 10 other people. And I lived in this room that you've seen. It was like roughly the size of, it could have been, maybe a small office, maybe a large coat closet.
Not a large coat closet, but okay.
Like definitely not really a room. So it was very, very, very small. And that living situation, I mean, for someone like right out of college, if you're living in the Bay Area, like that's kind of what you have to do. Like you have to cut corners, like you have to make decisions about, what are you going to sacrifice? So for me, I was like, I can live, as long as I have my own room, I can live in a tiny room. And living with 10 other people, it's like, sure, You know, we have a bathroom schedule. We have a lot of rules about like cooking. We have a lot of rules about, you know, who isn't allowed in the house.
Yeah.
But overall, you know, I think at that age it was appropriate. And then you
That's
know,
fair.
Yeah. And you were in my home, like
Yeah.
you visited.
Yeah, no, I've definitely seen it, yeah.
It wasn't too bad. It just, you know, you could definitely see where like corners were being cut, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a renter.
For
and
sure.
So,
Well, so like, obviously, you know, this is like pre-COVID, you know, no problem living with 10 folks, right? Sharing bathrooms and kitchen utensils and all that type of stuff. But then 2020 comes, COVID is like the biggest thing out there, and it impacts us not only in the way we live, but how we live, right? So I'm assuming that's what caused you to start looking for your own place. But how did you stumble upon the apartment that we're going to be discussing today?
I went to Craigslist.
Oh,
and,
the infamous Craigslist, yes.
You know, I didn't know about so many other, you know, verified like places to look for apartments except for Craigslist. So, started that journey. Definitely, you know, was finding a lot of apartments that were like way out of my price range. But I did find this one that was in my price range.
Yeah.
But there were only 2 photos of it, and they were not really of inside the apartment.
No, if I remember correctly, wasn't it the entire house that was, or am I remembering that wrong? It was like because like, well, sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but describe the property, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, no, you're right. Like, I think the photos that I saw on Craigslist that I showed you, they were photos of like the front of this house that was divided into units.
So it wasn't the actual unit itself.
It wasn't the unit.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, you know, you and I went together to take a look at this.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think right off the bat, there were some interesting, like, signs of what I could expect from living there. So we go around, like, the back of this apartment, or the back of this house, to, like, we're kind of, like, looking for it. We're like, where is this, like, apartment, you know,
it's a little confusing,
Yeah, so you're in, like, the backyard of this house, and then you kind of, like, look a little bit closer, and you see that there's like this door right at the back of the house that's kind of hidden. Like you would not know that there was, you know, a door there, like if you were just, I don't know, dropping something off in the backyard.
Yeah.
And remember, they were only letting a few people up at a time because it was so small.
Yeah.
So
there was like a line to see this small unit.
Yeah, there was a line. So we waited outside for a little bit, and like we walked, you know, up these stairs. And first thing you see is a toilet.
Yeah, that's a weird first thing to see at any apartment, but yeah.
Yeah, so there's like a little toilet and a sink, you know, with a little door right at the top of the stairs. We're like, okay, all right, like toilet, sink, perfect. Like, where's the shower? You know, you would wonder.
Yeah.
We see there's a little kitchen. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, little kitchen. The room is very, very small. A little bit of a loft. And so we're like, well, we've seen everything. Like,
where do you shower?
Where's the shower?
Yeah.
So we see some people coming out of this door that, you know, I had thought maybe was a closet.
Wait, I don't remember this part. When we went in there, there were still people in the apartment.
Yeah.
And they came out of this door that you thought was a closet, but it turned out to be
a shower.
A shower?
No, not just a shower.
Oh yeah, no, really go into detail because this is like creepy, I thought.
Yeah, so you see in the main part of the room, like, I don't know if people are familiar with like the layout of a studio apartment, but there's like this main room that's very, very small, like carpeted.
Yeah.
And you see these carpeted steps leading up to what I had just assumed would be a closet. And so people come out of that door, and we walk up those steps. And we see a long hallway with a shower at the end. And the floor, I kid you not, is like tilted to the side.
Yeah, it's a little slanted.
Yeah, so walking down to the end is a little awkward. And the shower itself, you know, I remember like you and I were like looking at it, and I was kind of like poking like the I don't know what you call it, like the stuff you put on a shower. It's like kind of like plastic siding, you know. It was like peeling off. So it was a little bit jarring. It was a little strange. Like I had a hard time imagining myself not slipping and sliding.
Yeah, down the shower hallway.
Yeah. But yeah, I think, you know, we went about our day and kind of put some thought into whether or not I could really live in a place like that. But the price, you know, the price for that apartment, it was like $1,300 for a studio, and like that's really hard to
beat.
Yeah. So we waited in line to talk to this realtor who he seemed like a little just agitated, like he just wanted to get out of there, you know. Like I remember he was wearing like sunglasses and he was just like scrolling through his phone while like people were talking to him. But I remember we were listening in on the conversation of the person in front of us, like when I was like waiting to, you know,
ask your questions,
talk to him. And I remember this woman was asking about the like safe. She was like, "Oh, is this a safe neighborhood?" Like, and he was like, "Well, what is safe? Define safe."
For this price, this is what you're getting, okay?
And I thought that was pretty funny. I mean, like, to me, I was like, oh, haha, you know, for like $1,300, like, sure, like, it's not gonna be in Beverly Hills, like.
Also, you did live in Berkeley for previously. You're just moving to a different part of Berkeley. Some would say even a nicer part of Berkeley. So you're like, you know, whatever it is, it's still an upgrade because you live near downtown. So there were a lot of things, like I could hear like questions people were asking in front of me, and to me, like as someone that was like used to, you know, the living situations I described, I was like, oh, no big deal. Like I can excuse almost all of that. But we get up and you know, I get up there to ask my question. You're there for moral support. I'm a little nervous, like about, you know, like talking to realtors and stuff. But I remember asking, you know, well, so the previous tenant, like one of my first questions is always like the previous tenant, like how long did they live here, and like why did they leave? And the realtor was which are very fair questions.
You know, you want to know if there's like, is there an issue with the apartment? Like, were they only here for like 6 months and then they had to leave?
It was
like,
a sublet.
And he was like, no, she was here for years. Like,
emphasizing,
he's like, she was here for, you know, I think he couldn't give me an exact like number. Just that she had been living there for like a great portion of her life. And I thought that was good.
Like, oh, she likes the apartment. Must like, be okay,
encouraging, you know? And, you know, when it came to, like, why did she leave? He was like, she left in a hurry. And he didn't give me any more detail than that.
Just that.
Yeah.
So, okay, you see a couple red flags. And the realtor was a little vague with a lot of the topics that, you know, the questions that you asked. But I'm going to assume here, I was going to ask you, why did you eventually decide to move into this apartment? But you kind of mentioned it earlier. You couldn't beat the price, right? I
just couldn't. I mean, you and I, like, I took you with me because I do get nervous, like, looking at places. And I also want, like, a second opinion from someone, you know? And
apparently I didn't help.
Well, I mean, price-wise, like, that same day, I took you with me to look at another apartment that was it was beautiful, but it was so far out of my price range. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was like $2,000. And I was like, I just can't. Like, that's not going to be doable for me, you know, at any point. And I think just, like, looking at the price, you know, I was like,
the location
was good, right off of like a major bus line, close to BART. Like, it seemed like all doable fixes. Like I could make it a livable place if I wanted to. So, it just came down to the price.
Hey everybody, just wanted to interrupt this episode to let you know that we are on social media. So if you could just give us a follow, we really appreciate it. We're on Instagram at Itty Bitty Horror. We are on Twitter. We are at Itty Bitty Horror as well. And if you're on Facebook, make sure to follow and like our Facebook page at Itty Bitty Horror Podcast. Feel free to share your stories on posts, direct messages, or as a comment. And if you'd like to be a guest on the Itty Bitty Horror Podcast, send me an email to ittybittyhorror@gmail.com. Now back to the show. So, Annie, we just discussed why you wanted to move into your own place, right? We just discussed the hesitations you had about the specific apartment and why you still ended up moving in. And then in this next part, I just want to talk a little bit more about what happened once you finally did move in. So, you decided to take the apartment. What was your first day like?
So I was so excited. I borrowed a car from one of my coworkers. I packed up a bunch of cleaning stuff, and I decided to head over there, get the keys, do the walkthrough, and I'm just gonna give it like a once over, like a little bit of a clean before I actually brought my stuff.
Yeah.
So I get to the apartment, wait for the, realtor to do the walkthrough. I noticed some things that I didn't notice the first time that I was in there. So I noticed a little bit more of a mold issue that was going on. And something that was not there when we did the viewing at the open house was a lot of stuff was in the apartment, actually. There was a mattress on the ground. There were sheets. There was a comforter. There was a pillow with a pillowcase. There's actually shampoo and conditioner like in the shower. Cleaning products under the sink, forks, knives. There's a lot of stuff. It was like someone had been like actively living in there.
Yeah.
There was even food in the fridge.
Fresh food.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't expired.
Yeah.
Is what I noticed.
Yeah.
It was like pickles and like I think there was like some like kind of like jams and stuff, like stuff that could
condiments.
Yeah. But right away I was kind of like, okay, this is really strange. I need to get this back to whoever this belongs to.
Yeah.
So the person with like the rental agency is like, well, you're gonna have to call like the handyman of the building because they're gonna be able to pick it up in like a truck and like take it. So I called the handyman. He comes over. He goes to like fix a few things that like I pointed out to him, and we load all this stuff up into his truck. And I was like, hey, like this is going to the person that owned or like was renting the apartment before me, right? And he was like, no. And I was like, well, doesn't she want it? Like, can I get in touch with her? Like, do you have her, like, number? I just want to let her know that I really don't want to, like, just throw away her stuff.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, she's gone. To me, I was, like, trying to rationalize it in the moment. I was like, gone. Okay, that could mean she lives in Texas now. Like,
yeah.
Could mean she moved out of the country. But I think the thing... when you find food in a fridge in an apartment that you're about to move into, like, I think normally what that means is the person that was living there is, like, might have passed on.
Yeah.
Might have passed away.
Do you think this person died in your apartment?
It feels like a possibility. I think just, that paired with, like, remember the realtor was like, oh, well, she just moved out very suddenly. And she lived here for a long time. It kind of it also felt like the stuff that I found, it felt like an old woman's stuff,
Yeah.
Like it felt like, something maybe my grandma would have. And yeah, I don't know. I believe, honestly, she might have died in the apartment.
Yeah. Well, okay, so the handyman takes the stuff away and you're like, oh shit, well, I think somebody died in this apartment that I'm staying in now.
Yeah.
You get the place cleaned up the way you want it. You finally move in. Did you experience anything on your first night there?
I had this sense, I really thought that being alone for the first time, like really alone, would feel different. Like I thought that I would really feel like, oh, I'm alone in my apartment.
Yeah.
And it sounds kind of crazy to say.
Apparently not. Yeah.
I didn't really feel... I had just, like, this sense right away. I think I was cooking dinner, like, my first night there. And I had that feeling of like, do you ever have that feeling that someone's like watching you?
Yes, plenty of times.
It felt like, it just felt like someone was watching me. It felt like someone was there.
Yeah.
And I was just like, whatever,
Yeah.
It's probably just like me not having really lived alone ever, and having that first experience, that first night. So first night I really just like, I brushed it off. But, over time, I started feeling it definitely more and more. And
like, is some weird energy or presence around you, or what do you mean?
Yeah. I think it would happen not just even late at night, but like during the day too, like different times of the day. I would be doing something, like I would be, playing music on my phone, and that silence between songs, I would just like, I would feel something, like I would feel like I wasn't alone, like I would really feel like someone was over my shoulder, and I would turn around and there would be no one there. I think I did, like, when you first move into a place like that and you're so excited, there's like so many things you're willing to overlook, like it's not the best apartment, obviously. Bit of a mold problem, obviously. One of the things I noticed when I first moved in, like my first like few weeks, was there's seemingly like a little bit of an electrical issue in the bathroom, where I'd be taking a shower and the fan would stay on but the lights would turn off, but the fan and the lights are controlled by the same switch. So I was like, how does that work?
For any electricians out there, if you know of how this would happen, please let us know. Yeah,
please do. It really confused me, and it would happen when, I was like showering. I would feel like, I would just like feel this sense in the shower at the end of that very long hallway. That someone else was in there.
You know how earlier we were talking about like how we would haunt each other?
Yes.
Maybe she was trying to get you out of the bathroom, because you did say that it was slanted.
Slanted.
It had mold. Maybe she was like, hey, don't spend too much time in the shower.
Yeah. She was like, get out, girl.
Get out, girl.
Yeah. It felt like, and I honestly don't feel like there was anything sinister, but it was that fear of like, oh, I'm not really alone. I kind of want to get into like that one night that I told you about.
Yeah.
Where we were, I don't exactly know what we were doing. I think we saw a movie. Maybe that's the night we saw like Underwater with Kristen Stewart.
Yes, movie. I do remember that movie.
Yeah. And I like indulged in some adult candy.
Okay.
Some gummies.
The government is listening to this, so I'm going to have to report you. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I just decided I wanted to see a fun movie and I wanted to have some fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I went home that night. I felt like something was wrong.
Okay. So just to repeat back, you got high. And then
I didn't say that.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. You had some adult candy.
Yeah.
You went back to your apartment at night by yourself, and you felt something weird.
I felt something weird, and was it maybe the adult candy? Like, I was having a good night. I felt fine all night.
What did you feel?
I got into my apartment and it felt like someone was already there.
Yeah.
Like, I felt that anxiety of like, it felt like maybe someone was already there. And I'm like a stickler for saving electricity. I turn everything off when I leave. Everything. I unplug things. Like, I just do not want to be paying a cent more than I have to pay. But I go upstairs to my apartment, and I notice that the fan is on and the light is off in my bathroom. And I'm a little panicked. Yeah. So I just I turn on all the lights. Yeah. And I make sure there's like no one in my apartment. Yeah. And I sit down on my bed, fully clothed. Yeah. Shoes on. And I'm ready to run out. I just feel like I can't. I just feel that presence. Like, I feel like I can't move. And so the light is on, the fan is on in the bathroom. All the lights are on. And so I feel I feel not alone, you know. And for the first time, it feels kind of scary.
Yeah.
I've had that feeling. It wasn't scary necessarily. It was a little jarring, but it wasn't frightening. I felt frightened.
Yeah.
All the lights are on. Bathroom, light is on, fan is on. And the light goes out in the bathroom, in the shower.
Yeah.
And that moment, it freaked me out. It just terrified me so much. I stayed there on my bed all night.
Yeah.
In my clothes.
Yeah.
My shoes on.
Yeah.
Until morning. When I felt safe enough.
Safer, yeah.
But I think, that experience definitely left a little bit of a cloud on my time in that apartment.
Yeah, so you were a little doubtful.
Yeah.
So you just told us a little bit about like, okay, I moved into the apartment, everything seemed well, but then the handyman told you this woman died on your bed. And if you don't give her stuff back, it's your turn, sweetie. And obviously, I'm paraphrasing, I guess. Then you went out, you saw something that you felt some weird energy in your apartment, some electrical issues potentially. You went out, out with friends, got high. I mean, had adult candy. And then you came back, and then was this the inciting factor of why you decided to move?
You know what? Not necessarily.
No? So it wasn't the potential demonic presence.
Well,
in my mind, it's a demonic presence.
I still don't believe. I believe, and as I said, I'm agnostic, so I don't necessarily believe that there are ghosts. I don't believe that there aren't. But, like, if there were, I don't think this was a bad one.
No?
No.
Maybe she was just, like, trying to send you a sign.
Yeah.
What is that sign?
I don't know. I think she just, maybe...
You're paying too much.
You're paying too much.
Too much rent.
Okay, here's this story that I could piece together. If I believed in ghosts, this is the story I would tell, is that I think she was an older woman, she lived alone, maybe she was kind of lonely. I felt like she died in the shower. Like, if she did pass, like, R.I.P., rest in peace, seriously, like, I feel like she must have passed in that shower, because an old woman, like, walking down that long hallway, that slanted hallway to the shower, that's really dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, if you were having trouble, imagine an older lady.
Yeah. And I feel like she was telling me, stay out of there. Don't shower.
Don't ever shower, period.
I was, and you know this, I was showering at the gym, like, every day.
Yeah.
Because I just, at a certain point, I felt so weird about that shower.
Yeah.
That I just was showering at the gym.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Well, that shower is enough to write 3 sequels to a movie.
So yeah, I think I think it wasn't necessarily like what I felt there. It was more so like the mold was pretty bad, and the electrical issue, like, let's call it that. Yeah, it was really they just were not going to fix it, and I was worried there was going to be like an electrical fire. So, moved out.
Now, Annie's not the only one to have experienced something spooky in an apartment. I, too, was looking for an apartment during COVID due to a revolving door of guests at my former spot.
Yeah. I'm very excited to talk to you about this because I think about your old apartment all the time.
Yeah.
So
I try to forget it.
I would too if I were you.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how you found your apartment in 2020.
So this was at the height, when it was maybe not the height, it was the beginning of COVID. I had a roommate and we both worked from home, basically. Anytime I would have a meeting, it was just, our lifestyles would just, contradict each other a little bit, you know what I mean? It just didn't work, especially during COVID, where we were like 24/7 at home. So I decided to just find apartments within my price range. Again, looked at Craigslist. I went through Hotpads, apartments.com, all these different apps, and I found one that was only 2 blocks away. I was like, you know what, this would be perfect. The price is, a little bit high, but it's nearby. I don't have to change too much of my lifestyle around. I could just move my own shit, like, with a couple of blocks, and I'd be good to go.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the second apartment I saw for the first time when you had actually moved in, and I had a lot of initial thoughts, but tell me about the historical features of this apartment.
So this apartment was, again, convenient for me, a couple of blocks away, price, decent price, I guess. As soon as I got there, the landlord was actually out there to show me the spot. He did tell me that I was going to be in the first apartment 101, right there on the first floor. And he mentioned that my portion of the apartment, or the front part of the building, was over 100 years old. As soon as I walk in, I could smell it. It smelled like an old library, but not the good kind. You know what I mean? Not the ones where, this smells like nice fresh books or old dusty books, whatever. It smelled like wet carpet. It's just like really weird, very ornate fixtures all around. He took me into the apartment and he gave me a tour. The studio itself was actually pretty big. I was surprised. I was like, oh, this is a really big studio apartment. I went to the kitchen, and that's where things started to look a little odd for me. This kitchen had a huge icebox from like 1950 something. It was not connected to anything, so when you opened it, you could smell the insulation, like the warm something. I don't even know how to describe it, but it was disgusting. A bunch of oak fixtures as well. It just felt like it was something from another time.
And I remember distinctly there was also one feature in the kitchen that was kind of concerning.
The stove, yes. The stove, thank you for reminding me. The stove it was an old stove, right? But as he's like, oh, you have a stove, you have a refrigerator. Refrigerator was like shorter than me, and I'm not that tall. And the stove, I was like, oh, cool. It's a gas stove, I think, or something, electric, I don't know, whatever. I touched it. It was so hot. And he's like, oh, don't touch it. And I was like, is it on? Like, no, it was off the whole time, but it was hot. So I was just like 1 minute away from the whole building exploding, I'm pretty sure. I don't know why it was so hot, and he didn't give me a straight answer for that. And it was just a weird kitchen overall.
It definitely was. It I will say it smelled a little bit like gas.
Yeah, it definitely had a little faint smell. Maybe I was just so, I don't know.
I think it was mixed with the other smell of like, you're right, it smelled like a library in a way.
Yeah.
Not like a library on a wet day.
And it rained inside the library.
Yeah.
Apparently. Yeah.
But it was huge. Your apartment was huge.
It was surprisingly huge for a studio, yeah.
Really big. So you think it was, when you were looking at it, like all those features, you're like, wow, like this kitchen looks like it was shut off in the 1940s and never opened again.
Yeah. Like, caution tape was just put there. It was like, oh, somebody's looking to rent, get the caution tape out. Yeah.
Do you think it was worth the price?
Well, no. I mean, you got to understand, and you do understand actually, because we just shared the story, but to our listeners who are not from the Bay Area, you have to understand that an apartment that's listed for $1,700, I think that's initially what I paid for a studio in a decent location in Oakland, is very unheard of. It's very rare that you'll find it, but it may have been COVID that, reduced the prices. I don't know, but to me, it was a steal. And I was like, you know what? Yes, the kitchen is a little outdated. Yes, I'm on the first ground level, Yes, it smells like an old, wet library. But at the same time, I couldn't pass it up. And it was 2 blocks away from where I used to live, so it's easy for me to just I don't have to change too much of my lifestyle. Could move in real quick. But yeah, I thought it was a steal.
Yeah. So to recap, with the cheap rent and being close to your apartment.
Yeah.
All other factors could be looked over.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
You can easily look over any red flags because of the price of an apartment, which is unfortunate.
Oh, yeah. That's living in the Bay Area, though.
Yeah. No, you're right.
So when you were living there, I remember, we talked a little bit about things feeling a bit strange in there. At what point while you were living there did you start to notice maybe some other things are off that you can't necessarily see?
So when I was there, I think the first thing that I felt was, I remember it was about 2 or 3 in the morning. I was asleep and I heard, keep in mind that again, just repeat back, my apartment was right on the first floor ground level. So people could just be walking outside willy-nilly. It was about 2, 3 in the morning and I got woken up by a woman screaming. And it was just, but the thing is, it's not like, I mean, it woke me up, obviously, but when I realized somebody was screaming, I didn't know if it was happening outside or not. And I was like, oh shit, like, what if somebody's getting killed or something? I don't know. But then I was like, I turned around and the voice, or the screaming woman's voice, was just floating around my studio apartment. Like, it was going up and down in volume, and it just felt like it was floating around. I was like, what the hell is this? I did not know. It was too late, and the person above me was an older lady. I doubt she was watching a movie. And it was just felt really, really creepy.
Yeah, that's terrible. Honestly, you've told me that story before, so I would think it wouldn't be as scary now, but it's still scary every time. And keep in mind, like, these windows on the first floor, they were low enough to the ground where I received an Uber Eats order through the window. Yeah. You remember the Uber Eats?
Yeah, I remember he went.
Yeah. So they were so close to the ground, and like you would see sometimes like shadows, you know, passing by of like people being like, you know, smoking outside or whatever. But that story, like just visualizing those windows, those big metal kind of like church windows.
They were like church windows. Yeah, I just needed the stained glass window. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, they're terrifying.
And another thing that happened was, I remember I was in that disgusting, spooky kitchen, and I was dating somebody at that time, and he was in the living room watching a movie, and I was making us, I don't know, sandwiches or something, I don't know. And then as soon as I come out, like a little housewife with my 2, you know, plates with like our sandwiches or whatever, he's like, babe, is this place haunted? I'm like, and keep in mind, at this point, I had not told him anything. I was like, why do you say that? He's like, I just saw this human-like black shadow just float right by me. I still think that he actually did see something, because you've experienced something in my place. And I don't know if you want to talk about it, because I'm pretty sure it's like I'm kind of putting you on the spot right now.
Well, since you asked, I didn't want to say anything because you were really excited to be getting this apartment. It was your first apartment on your own in the Bay, you know, which is
in itself an accomplishment for anybody.
A huge accomplishment. It's so expensive. You know, you found this great place. It was huge. It was right on the first floor. Like, I really didn't want to say anything, but I was there with you, and I remember we were just like cleaning up. Like, you would just like, you know, kind of brought some of your stuff over, and like we were like Swiffering the floor, I think. Like building IKEA furniture. I remember walking in there and like immediately feeling like a little bit unsettled, and it could have been the smell of gas
that I couldn't smell, apparently.
Potential gas leak. It could have been like it was a little bit moldy, mildewy, like I don't know, something about like how old everything was, and seeing it all empty like that. I felt a little disturbed, definitely. I felt a little disturbed. I didn't want to say anything to you. I think in the kitchen I felt like seeing the icebox and like all the empty cabinets and like the really old like molding like on the walls, like you know, I don't know what they call it, like ornate like molding on the, you know, ceilings. It felt like being in like an empty church, kind of.
A little bit, yeah. Well, I mean, that in itself is, you know, just aesthetically, yes, it's a little creepy, but I think the final thing that just made me think, like, you know what, this place has more story to it that I was not told by the landlord. I remember I just heard a commotion outside, because, like, again, I live on the first floor. It's right by the entrance. And I heard a bunch of commotion and people coming inside, like they were pushing like a wheelbarrow or something. It's like, what the hell's going on? So I went to my door and I opened the little peephole thingy, and it was actually like an old like little door that you open. I thought it was pretty cute. And I looked in there and I saw paramedics taking what do you call it, like a gurney, and I was like, oh shoot, like, is somebody like sick? And then I closed it real quick, but I did see some of my neighbors there in the hallway, but I didn't really talk to anybody, so I felt like, oh, I don't know if I want to be out there with everybody, and I feel like I would be like a chismoso or a metiche or something, like a very nosy person. So I was like, no, you know what, no. And then I heard the ambulance turn on their like or whatever.
Oh no.
And I opened the windows like a diva. I was like, what's going on? And I saw, and they had a body covered, like fully covered, like they died somehow in there. And I remember seeing a couple of old people, like really old people, just like walk there. I would go outside and smoke a cigarette, and they'd go out there too, and I'd be like, oh, should you be smoking? I don't know. And it turned out to be that guy, the smoker guy. He was like put in a, like, covered completely.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, this is just a revolving door of souls.
So to recap, you had deaths in the building.
Yeah.
You had a shadowy figure crossing your living room. You had your oven going haywire.
Yeah.
And you had just this uneasy sense inside your apartment. So what was the inciting reason for you actually moving out?
Well, so I was there for a year, and I'm not an old man that's going to be like, you kids need to go to sleep or anything like that. But I was, I think it was like trying to sleep. It was like maybe midnight already. I've been watching TV, started to doze off, and I heard some commotion outside. And then I had curtains, but I saw like a glowing orange thing outside of the curtains. I was like, oh shit, the apartment is on fire. What's going on? But I heard people outside, so I immediately went to the windows, those majestic windows, and I didn't even open those. I just peeked through the curtain, and I saw like a mini carnival of sorts of people who were playing like with rings of fire.
Oh my god.
Yeah, they were just doing that while smoking weed, which is, again, I don't care, but it's like right in a quiet neighborhood right in front of me. I was trying to sleep, a lot of music, and the property manager, that woman would not see heaven because she was so rude to me the entire time I was there. Anytime I asked her for anything, she'd be like, well, that's not my responsibility, you figure it out, or whatever. And I was just like, geez, this woman. But then she's out here smoking crack, basically. Well, it wasn't crack, it was weed, but still, she's out there smoking and dancing, and everybody's throwing the fires and things like that. And I was like, I feel like I'm not part of this community, like I'm not part of this house, really, because I always felt like, I don't know, maybe they just shunned me because I was like, oh, he's in 101 the apartment or something. But I decided, like, no, I don't ever want to experience this anymore with, such lack of attention and care. So decided to move to my own other place. This time it's a 1-bedroom, so I'm glad that I was able to do that.
Yeah, this one's much better,
yeah,
I would say. Really imagine like being woken up in the night and looking out your stained glass windows.
There was no stained glasses, but yes.
To see a fire, what were they doing?
Fire breathing carnival. People throwing, it was just like really weird. And again, that's your hobby. Hey, good for you. But it's like trying to sleep here. The property manager's having the time of her life of shooting up heroin up her toes.
Oh my gosh. Truly, I cannot imagine what would be going through my head if I saw that in the middle of the night. I would think that I had done LSD by accident.
I don't know, how do you do LSD by accident? But yes.
Just somehow.
Yes, with your adult candy.
Exactly. Yeah, my adult candy.
Yeah.
So, tell us a little bit about your living situation now.
So now I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment, still in Oakland, and like about a 5-minute drive from my old apartment. And I moved in here. I was still dating that guy when I moved into this apartment. He came in here and he started to sage the house, the apartment, to clear it of any bad energy or juju or whatever you want to call it. So he did that, and I currently live in a much better place. For
much
sure.
Nicer.
Yeah, much nicer. Yeah.
No bad spirits.
No bad spirits yet. But I will tell you, Last night we were celebrating your friend and my friend Owen's birthday. Hey Owen, shout out to you.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday belated. And we went to this bar next door to my apartment. And as we were leaving, we had fun. We did karaoke, a little tipsy on my end. But as soon as we walked out, obviously, as you can see, we saw this weird claymation, maybe paper mache doll.
I think he's paper mache.
He's paper mache, right? Yeah.
He's mixed medium.
Exactly. And he was just by this stop sign or this sign. I don't know what kind of sign it was anymore, but it was just right there. And I picked it up and I started laughing because it was so weird. And we decided to call him Jedediah.
Our son.
Our son, exactly. And we were just talking and a couple of people walked out. So if you are listening, we saw you at the bar.
I have a photo of you holding Jedediah.
Yeah, we have a photo which we may post on social media. So feel free to like it. And if you want us to send you the picture, we can definitely send it to you. Just DM us. But yeah, the funny thing is that a couple of days before I had lost my key at another bar down the street. But I was like, okay, well, I can no longer find it. And I spoke to the bartenders and I told them, like, look, if you find the key, can you please text me to this number? I didn't give them my address. I didn't give them my apartment number, anything like that. Cut to yesterday. We had little Jedediah, in tow. And I was so excited. I felt like I brought in some new positive energy into my life.
Yes.
And I'll post a picture of him on Instagram. But we were walking up the stairs. And as soon as I get to my door, I see an envelope right there. And I pick it up and it says, here's your key. I was like, here's my key. Who the fuck are you? Who sent this? Because I never gave the address to anybody, much less my apartment number. And I opened it and the key's in there. And I was so freaked out. I was like, how did this end up here? Because I hadn't told anybody that I lost a key. I didn't tell the landlord. I didn't tell the property manager. I told you. That was it.
Yeah.
And somehow it ended up was it you? Did you put the key in my door? And I'm kidding.
Yes.
Yeah, it was you the whole time. And it's just a weird feeling. And then I started thinking about it. It's what if Jedediah is my new genie in a bottle, on a bottle, actually, because it's on a bottle.
Yeah, his body is a wine bottle.
Yeah, so he's my genie on a bottle. I don't know, but it was just a weird coincidence, I guess, and it just felt really, really like something that I should tell people.
Oh, it was scary. It was really scary. We were just having such a good time. We were laughing, we were taking photos of Jedediah, we were passing him around to the public.
Yeah.
Our newest fans, we were meeting them and all getting to partake in Jedediah's magic.
Yeah.
And so we come laughing up the stairs, ha,
Yeah.
joyous. And opening the door, an envelope was literally scrawled. I think we still have it. It was black Sharpie scrawled envelope.
Here's your key.
Just here's your key. Nothing else. No other information.
Yeah.
And it just felt wrong.
It is wrong.
It felt wrong.
I felt like we're the next ones to be possessed.
Yeah. Terrifying.
We'll leave it at that. Annie, I want to thank you so much for being my guest on the very first episode of Itty Bitty Horror. How'd you like it?
I had a good time. I had a really good time. It was actually really interesting to recount where we started in our journey of like living alone in the Bay Area. So it was nice to reflect. I was a little nervous though. So I hope I did okay. No,
you did amazing. Do not worry about that. It's also like my first time doing it, as we mentioned in the beginning of the episode, but I think it's it went really, really well, except for a couple of hiccups with some background outside noises, since I do live in a busy street. Try to edit that out. But before you leave, I do have one question and one favor to ask you, if that's okay. Okay. First question, or the only question I really have for you is, what is one piece of advice that you would give to anybody looking to rent an apartment, not necessarily in the Bay Area, but like somebody who's looking to rent an apartment with a limited budget?
you have to, there are some things you have to overlook. Like, you have to be willing to overlook some things. So if you want to live on your own and you have a limited budget, you will be looking at historical apartments in the Bay Area. They're going to be built a long time ago, and that might come with some inconvenient circumstances. So I think if you can just look at it from a point of view of be a historian, you know, like be comfortable with it, like get into it. Just try to enjoy it as much as you can, because I think in your old apartment, you know, we would joke about it and we would have fun with the ice box and kind of like bringing people in, telling them the tales of the place that you lived. So I think if you can, you know, if you're overlooking those little details of an apartment built in, you know, I don't know, the 1930s, then just try to have a sense of humor about it and have fun with it.
Oh, that's really good advice. Now, keep that in mind the next time I start to look for an apartment, and if I'm ever in a limited budget headspace, I'll make sure to keep that in mind. The other thing I wanted to ask you is, we have this new segment, or it's not new, it's the first episode, but a segment called Ghostwriter. Essentially, what I want to do is I'm going to put what we just discussed throughout the entire episode, give very little notes to ChatGPT, and see if we can spit out a story that will be similar to ours, or see how ridiculous it is. Yeah. Would that be okay?
Let's do it.
Okay, awesome. So I've opened up ChatGPT on my phone, and I typed out, Annie and Luis are looking for an apartment with a limited budget, but the apartment may be haunted. Tell me a short story about this.
Excellent.
Okay, and I'm going to have you read it, or do you want me to read it?
We could probably go like half and half.
Well, first of all, I should have clarified that we're both queer, because it automatically said that we're a young couple.
Oh, no.
Do you want to go through it anyway?
Sure.
Okay. Do you want to take turns reading it? You can read the first paragraph and you can read the rest.
Yeah.
Okay, it starts off with, Annie and Luis, a young couple new to the city, were thrilled to find a charming apartment within their budget. However, as they toured the space, whispers of its haunted past circulated. Ignoring the rumors, they decided to move in, eager to start their new life together.
At first, everything seemed normal, but soon strange occurrences began to unsettle them. Objects moved on their own. Eerie sounds echoed through the halls, and shadows danced in the corners of their vision. Despite their fears, Annie and Luis couldn't afford to move out.
That sounds like us, actually.
Like, incredibly accurate. Determined to make the best of their situation, they started researching the apartment's history. They discovered that a young woman, Emily, had tragically passed away there years ago.
It's kind of true to your story, though.
Oh, no.
Maybe the woman who died in your apartment was Emily, but go ahead.
Too close to reality. One night, as they were discussing their findings, they heard soft sobbing coming from the bedroom.
I heard screaming voices in mine, remember? Floating, screaming. Okay, go ahead.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe it is accurate.
I'm kind of getting a little nervous. Bracing themselves, they entered, only to find Emily's ghost sitting on the edge of the bed.
Ooh.
Instead of fleeing, Annie and Luis approach her with empathy.
Wait, this is not going to be a challenger's moment, is it?
No, what is this? Realizing she was trapped in the earthly realm by her unresolved emotions.
Oh.
Through compassion and understanding, they helped Emily find peace, and in return, she stopped haunting the apartment. That does sound like us.
Yeah. Yeah, we would, offer it peace.
Feel like, oh, like, cry on my shoulder, girl.
Tell me your story, sis.
With Emily's spirit finally at rest, Annie and Luis embraced their new home, grateful for the unexpected bond they had formed with the ghostly presence. Together, they created a warm and welcoming space where both the living and the departed could find solace.
Okay, first of all, I would, yes, come on board, other netherworld beings, but, you know, help us pay the fucking rent.
Yeah, like chip in, do the dishes if you're gonna be here.
Hello, we were just talking about how we would do each other favors. You would give me water.
Yes.
I would move your candles or something to the side just so they won't fall over.
Yes. Give me solid.
We just gave you some free therapy, Emily.
Yeah.
You just left us?
It feels very one-sided.
How dare she?
How dare she?
Well, that was... and that was Ghostwriter, the news segment. Annie, again, thank you so much for being on this episode. I hope you enjoyed being here as much as I enjoyed having you here. For our listeners that want to learn a little bit more about Annie, where can they find you? You can't. You can look, but you can't find me. Please, no investigative researchers. We don't want no doxing here. Well, Annie, thank you so much for being on the episode. Thank you so much for having me. This is so fun. Remember, when you're looking for an apartment in the Bay Area or anywhere really, please make sure to do your research. Trying to find the right place for the right budget can be hard, but one thing you have to understand is that moving into any property has its own energy and stories, and we're just one of the many that will leave our mark there. I really hope you enjoyed today's first episode of Itty Bitty Horror. I'd like to once again thank Annie for joining and telling us her stories and tips on what to look out for when you're looking for a place to call home. I'd also really appreciate a review on the episode, but no pressure. Preferably a 5-star review because it does help us in the algorithm to get noticed by others looking for small, creepy stories. If you have any thoughts on today's episodes or topics you'd like to discuss further, email me at ittybittyhorror@gmail.com. So what do you think? Do you believe in ghosts? Feel free to leave us a comment on our social media pages and tell us your story. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.